This is the WB Wednesday. Tonight, Birds of Prey. But first, it's the year's most anticipated film. Go behind the scenes for an exclusive look at footage you won't see anywhere else.
We knew it would be amazing.
Hosted by Smallville's Michael Rosenbaum, the WB presents Behind the Scenes, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
For the stars of The Lord of the Rings, the cinematic trilogy is more than 3 of the biggest movies ever made. The epic quest on the screen is a reflection of their own real-life journey during 2 intense and magical years in New Zealand. Tonight, Liv Tyler and Elijah Wood share what it was like to spend the prime years of their youth halfway around the globe.
We didn't have family there, and we didn't have any other friends there, so we became a family.
Australian actress Miranda Otto, whose character is introduced in film 2, talks candidly about her co-star.
Oh my God, who is this guy?
And Orlando Bloom reveals some secrets no one's heard till now.
We arrived in Queenstown, which is basically the adventure capital of New Zealand, and we were given memos saying, please do not get involved. And it was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is far too much fun to be had.
In film 1, a fellowship of heroes set out to destroy a ring that threatens the future of the world.
The fellowship is breaking. It has already begun.
I'm going to Mordor alone.
Of course you are. And I'm coming with you.
We will not abandon Merry and Pippin to torment and death. Let us hunt some orc.
Now, the journey continues in The Two Towers, the pivotal central film of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
The beauty of doing what we did is that we shot 3 movies in a trilogy at the same time. The Two Towers was essentially already shot and in the can by the time The Fellowship of the Ring came out. So it is very much a continuation of the story. It goes into a different place in the sense that our characters have now split up.
I always say that the second movie is going to be better than the first movie. And I started to realize the magnitude of what we were trying to accomplish and that we could accomplish it.
And there's a story of Aragorn and Arwen, and it's this exceptional love story.
What an audience has to look forward to in film 2 is that it goes to a whole nother level. It's the biggest battle you'll ever see on screen.
She's been brought up like a man. She's been brought up to fight. She's been brought up to ride. It's always great when women get to kick butt, you know.
For the cast, the epic story on the screen was a parallel to their own life-changing journey.
I don't think there was a single day when anybody involved with the process doubted for a second that we were a part of something special.
It's wild to think about the person that I was before. I'm 25 now. When I came here, I was 22.
I enjoyed it. I will always remember it. You have to be willing to give it everything, and there's no guarantee that you won't be hurt.
Tonight, the stars of The Lord of the Rings tell their personal stories. And we'll get an exclusive first look at an exciting scene from the most anticipated movie of the year.
The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers special is brought to you by Verizon Wireless.
Wrap up some love, deliver a few smiles, and you have a gift to keep the entire family together this holiday season from Verizon Wireless. Get them the America's Choice.
When the first film of the Lord of the Rings trilogy opened in December 2001, it quickly became a worldwide pop culture phenomenon and the 5th highest grossing film of all time. For the cast, the journey began with a gamble.
Everybody had very high expectations, but very real concerns that it wouldn't necessarily pay off. So it was a gamble, it was a risk. It's very difficult to tackle a book of this magnitude and a book that is so well loved by other people. So it wasn't completely a sure thing, but we knew it would be amazing.
This summer, or winter in New Zealand, the cast reunited after more than a year apart to shoot additional footage for The Two Towers.
It's strange. On the one hand, it feels like we've never left.
I mean, these are guys, they haven't even learned their lines. They've only got like 3 lines.
We got these lines about 15 minutes ago.
We don't talk about that.
It's weird because this time coming back, I was so excited. I came on the set and every single person was here.
It's a reunion. We get to see everybody again. It's a great feeling.
I had a slight anxiety about it coming back over in the plane, but once we put the feet back on, the wig was on, Dom was there, it wasn't a problem at all, you know?
When I saw Bill this time, he'd grown his hair for this film he was doing, and he looked the most like he looked when I first met him, which was kind of strange, you know, because we were going back to the place where we first met, and
I haven't aged a day.
Not a day.
It was exactly 3 years ago that cast members arrived from around the world to film 3 of the biggest movies of all time, simultaneously.
And I came here and it was like, oh my God, I just had no concept of how huge it was.
There was up to 6 units filming at any one time in 3 or 4 different places on one of the 2 islands of New Zealand.
From a visual perspective, film 2 becomes greatly more epic. Peter hasn't tried to make a carbon copy of film 1. He's built a greater and more comprehensive world.
Orlando Bloom entered Peter Jackson's world just after graduating drama school in London.
I was in my apartment and I got a call from my agent just saying, oh, you've been offered Legolas in Lord of the Rings. I sort of phoned her about 6 times, like afterwards, just going, did you just call me and tell me I got a role in Lord of the Rings? And then, I mean, that's like the most memorable phone call I've ever had. I'd never been to New Zealand in my life. It was like being at an adventure camp or something, you know? Horse riding, archery, sword play. It was like, you know, every boy's dream. An 18-month shoot is just unbelievable. There were times when you felt like exhausted, you know, physically and then mentally exhausted. But, you know, we were just, everyone would sort of help pull each other through. It felt like we were riding some wild horse and everyone was just trying to grab a rein the whole time, trying to keep it going.
For Orlando, who was called on to do his own stunts, horseback riding, and fights, the experience was all the more amazing, because just 2 years earlier, he fell out of a 3-story window and broke his back.
I had this very narrow escape, and basically they operated on me. Their first diagnosis was that I may not walk again. I walked out of hospital on crutches within 13 days. I mean, I was just a very lucky young man. It was crazy, you know, to think that here I was just a year out of a life-changing accident, really, and playing this huge physical role.
Liv Tyler came to New Zealand to play the elven princess Arwen.
I've been quite homesick on this film, I think more than anybody else, because everybody else has been in, you know, the Fellowship, and they all have these really tight bonds. Arwen in the films is quite separate from everybody, and I'm on my own a lot.
Liv's, you know, total sweetheart, and we just got on really well. She brought the feminine, elven energy. She was our princess, if you know what I mean.
It is like being a fairy princess in a funny kind of way for me to be able to get dressed up in these amazing, feminine, really, really feminine costumes.
Liv's transformation into Arwen was a daily 3-hour ritual.
First she puts glue, then the ear, and the ears are gelatin, so they melt. We can only use them once, right? Mm-hmm. It's very weird that it's winter here right now and it's summer at home. That was the weirdest. I completely forgot about that. And the day that I was packing, I just went, this is my dad's coat, which I brought with me, and I'm really happy I did because it's keeping me very warm.
Up to at least 9 in the morning.
This is the Dumbo shot. Not Arwen, but Dumbo.
I come to Aragorn in a vision at one point when he's wounded and defeated, and I come to him in a way to encourage him.
This is a dream.
Then it is a good dream. Rodrigo came the other day and just said he wanted to have a lot more Elvish in those scenes. Si pelianen ni vad Natalie. Si boy udanatha.
I enjoy speaking it so much. I mean, I wish all my lines were in Elvish.
No one had an earlier start each day than Elijah Wood and Sean Astin. A big part of their Lord of the Rings experience took place before the sun even rose.
The dark, yeah. Most of my call times were in the 5 o'clock hour. You get to set, it's dark, you don't really know where you are.
Oh, coffee would be fantastic.
You get out and you'd see it for what it really was once the sun came up. I saw a lot of sunrises, and then I got home and I haven't seen a sunrise since.
In the Two Towers, Frodo and Sam are now on their own, separated from the rest of the Fellowship. It was as significant a transition for Elijah and Sean as it was for their characters.
It was an amazing kind of parallel experience. The story and the separations that happened and how that was reflected in the actual shooting schedule. Elijah and I really bonded. We really became more than friends, almost brothers, really.
I've learned so much about Sean at every hour of the day. It's interesting, Sean's kind of inconsistent. There'll be days where I'll come in and he'll be really tired, you know? Some days he'll come in with the most brilliant energy. He'll start talking politics. He'll want to have serious discussions.
Today's good. It's usually a direct correlation between how much coffee I've had to drink.
Off to the next bus. Oh my God, this is an amazing morning.
I was 17 when I left for New Zealand.
How lucky are we to be in New Zealand to see this?
And I didn't miss home. I missed home in the sense that I wanted to see my family. I missed my family. But I loved my life. I had a house, I had a car. I became familiar with the town of Wellington that we were based in. Because I did so much growing in New Zealand. It left such an impact on me.
Sean and Elijah started filming The Two Towers around 4 months into the production schedule, about the time when most movies have already wrapped.
And then I realized, oh no, we've got another year and several months. And I definitely had at least one moment of thinking, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
Sean's worst day came on the 197th day of filming, when he and Elijah were helicoptered into a remote location.
You'd be in a state of panic. We were filming on a lake, and we had divers actually going down, looking at the bottom of the lake bed to make sure that it was okay for somebody to go in there.
Right, that'll be good for Sean. Can't just stand back a step. Action! Mr. Frodo!
But what they didn't find is the one piece of glass. He didn't yell or anything, he just went still.
I knew instantly that it was a substantial injury.
Let's sit him down and have a look at his foot.
Oh, man.
This sharp, jagged piece of glass, it literally pierced his foot, and underneath, right on the sole of his foot, and came out the top.
Let's clean it out.
I'll never forget hearing the medic say, oh yeah, it's bleeding quite freely now.
Come on.
So we had a helicopter come rushing in to grab him and fly him back. "24 hours and 20 stitches later, Sean was back on set. And today's event would become one of the endless memories along the 3-year journey.
It's incalculable how much of an impact the making of these films has had on my life.
It's an experience of a lifetime. I'll never have another experience like this.
When we come back, Miranda Otto talks about her co-star.
I defy all women who watch this film not to fall in love with him.
And Orlando Bloom takes us to the all-night party from hell.
From the creator of the
Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Two Towers are the fortresses of the wizard Saruman and the Dark Lord Sauron, an evil alliance, united in their effort to capture the ring and annihilate all of Middle-earth. Against such overwhelming odds, the opposition finds hope when their leader returns in an even more powerful incarnation.
It cannot be.
The members of the Fellowship have splintered into 3 groups. Frodo and Sam continue toward Mount Doom, unaware that they are being followed. Merry and Pippin have been kidnapped by Saruman's Uruk-hai soldiers. And Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, in pursuit of the Uruk-hai, venture into the kingdom of the Rohans.
What business does an elf, a man, and a dwarf have in the Ritter Mark? Speak quickly.
They're a race of people who are under attack by Sauron and Saruman and, you know, the evil forces of Middle-earth are coming in on them and burning their villages.
Joined by the wizard Gandalf, Legolas and his companions ride to the Rohan capital of Edoras, prepared to offer their support to the besieged kingdom.
Edoras and the Golden Hall of Meadowseld. There dwells Theoden, King of Rohan.
At Edoras, we meet the king's niece, Éowyn.
She's been brought up like a man. She's been brought up to fight. She's been brought up to ride. It's always great when women get to kick butt, you know. It's always fun. Aragorn is the one man that she really looks up to, and she falls in love with him.
She's very different from Arwen. You could say she might even be more right as a person for him to be with. There's a great affection between them.
I first saw Viggo, and I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? Oh, and he's playing Aragorn. Oh, this is going to be so easy to fall in love with this man. He's a man of incredible integrity, and he also looks absolutely smashing as Aragorn. I defy all women who watch this film not to fall in love with him.
For the cast, the filming at Edoras marked a high point in the entire journey.
The first time we drove to the Edoras set was about an hour-and-a-half drive, as I remember, and I slept for about the first hour, and then they woke me up and said, wait, you have to see. And as you come over the hill, suddenly there it is, right in front of you.
The remote location selected for Edoras posed a daunting challenge for Dan and Chris Henna, who head up the art department.
You know, it was an hour's drive from the nearest town, and we had to build all through the winter, so we had snow and ice, and we encountered winds of up to 180 kilometres an hour.
I think our guys were down there about 8 months. We feel pretty proud of what we've done.
The steps come down here.
It's taken 8 months to build, and we really got not much more than 8 days to shoot. Then it'll be gone. Then it'll always survive on film.
There was a majesty to that location, a secret valley, it seemed. That was a really magical time, and I think everyone felt their spirits rise a number of degrees.
All right, you'll shoot, please.
So, Richard, whatever you can do in the time available to you, sir.
One thing about the location of Edoras was the wind and the weather. The elements just, boom, straight there. It was like a magnet to it. So we were constantly being like blown around the place. But that was part of the enjoyment.
Certainly my hair's been flowing across my face and flying up in the air.
You could probably successfully argue that the whole thing could have been created digitally. When we arrived to film, it's just such a glorious location. I'm sure the cast gave a performance they would never have given in a stage.
Having Edoras as a real place and not having it as a model is a gift. All that stuff helps actors in their job because they don't have to imagine it.
We'll be hovering out here, but it'll be nailing you in quite a extreme close-up. It won't be coming in, it'll be coming in your direction.
If Edoras could be considered heaven on Middle Earth, then Helm's Deep would have to be its hell.
Helm's Deep is the fort that has been able to withstand all the battles that have been held there, you know. To date, it's the biggest battle you'll ever see on screen.
The fortress of Helm's Deep was built over 7 months in the cliff face of a remote rock quarry. For any of the actors, stuntmen, extras, or crew who lived through the filming of the Battle of Helm's Deep, this is the story they will tell their grandchildren. That's because it was an unprecedented 4 months of night shooting, mostly in the freezing cold and rain.
In the process of Helm's Deep itself, shooting that for months meant that Orlando, John Rhys Davies, myself, and the stunt team, plus, hundreds of extras, were, stuck together in this horrible, inhospitable, rocky, wet, dark, cold place.
Guys were falling over in their suits, because they were soaking wet and it was so cold that they were getting pneumonia and stuff like that. If someone was going through pain or going through their own little troubles in their head, someone would be there to pat them on the back and, come on, bro, you can do it.
Helm's Deep was definitely one of the most demanding shooting schedules that we had, but it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of mad energy that goes on at that time of night, and it was like a boys' night out. Basically, all the lads getting around shooting arrows, using their swords, getting down and dirty. We were totally isolated from the rest of the movie-making team, from the experience that others were having in the sunshine. I swear we were just always sort of shivering and banged up. You can see it on people's faces how tired they were. Everybody had this sort of vampire life where we were passed out from exhaustion. And you go outside in the street and you're all sort of pale and scratched up and cross-eyed, and you recognize it blocks away. Oh, there's one. They're like these creatures of the night.
At Helm's Deep, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli fight alongside a few hundred men and elves in a desperate last stand against Saruman's army of 10,000 Uruk-hai.
Not very good odds, but the message is you have to at least try.
For both Aragorn and Viggo, Helm's Deep became the place to lay it all on the line.
I'd say that Viggo and Aragorn are very similar. Viggo is incredibly committed 100% of the time.
If you sat down for just a second on a rock and just sort of, you sort of drift, and you're sort of seeing all these wet and tired extras, and stunt guys are limping and not admitting what pain or exhaustion they were in. You couldn't, in good conscience, do anything less than, your best. And that's really what Helm's Deep is about. It's the effort made, how the battle is fought.
Even though visual effects will figure prominently in the final epic battle, the physical production at Helm's Deep was as big and long as most entire films.
It was a microcosm of what the whole movie was about, in a way. Just this begging each other on to go past your limits. I mean, I hated it. I enjoyed it. I will always remember it. Everybody earned their stripes on that, on Helm's Deep.
Coming up, Elijah and Sean are joined by a new cast member who's anything but predictable.
I look at Sean, I was like, he's freaking me out, dude.
And an exclusive world premiere clip from the Two Towers.
It's here. Kids Can, chips for kids' toy drive, and we need...
What is that? Man flesh.
The Hobbits Merry and Pippin, who provided much of the comic relief in film 1, find themselves in more desperate circumstances in the Two Towers.
We're basically prisoners of war, and And Mary's had a terrible gash in his head, and I've never seen Mary like that before, so it's a real sort of, you know, things have been bad up to now, but this is just like a world that we don't understand.
What's making that noise?
They end up on the outskirts of Fangorn Forest.
Fangorn Forest. Everyone knows in Middle-earth is a kind of scary place to go. You know, it's really dark, but it's their only way to escape. Come here! The trees have started to move as well, so it's a kind of horrible place. But within that, they're met by Treebeard. So they go from being prisoners of war to like the very bosom of nature. It kind of helps them become hobbits again.
Bosom.
Did I say bosom?
It's bizarre how the story mirrors our life. It could quite easily have happened that I became a lot closer with, you know, Vigo, or Orlando, or Ian. When I broke away to do my separate story with Billy, I would always think, oh, well, it's great, but what a shame I'm not with, you know, the person that I feel I've connected to the most. But it just so happened that I did connect with Bill probably the most.
That is very aggressive, Tom.
For Billy and Dom, like the rest of the cast, the New Zealand capital city of Wellington became their adopted home.
So this is Fidel's, one of the best cafes in Wellington. This is my second breakfast for today. Second breakfast.
You see what he's done there?
See what I've done there?
See what he's done? Well, what about breakfast?
You've already had it.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast? He's brought life and the movie together. Like here we have kumara and bacon together. Me and Dom, we're now together, but not like that.
Second stop of the day, Real Groovy Records. I mean, we're in makeup for, you know, an hour and a half. You need something to wake you up, and for young guys, well, for anyone really, but certainly for us young guys, it seemed to be that music was, you know, the big motivator in the morning.
Dom recommended this for me. It's Icelandic music. I think it's, they play the nose flute. A very difficult instrument to master.
Billy and I are very competitive in terms of pool.
At this juncture, I'd just like to mention something. The sound man, who you would find over there, stuck this piece of tape onto my chest because apparently the hair was making a noise. He didn't ask me if he could stick it on. He just stuck it on.
Can I rip it off?
No, you can't rip it off.
He's allowing me to pull off the masking tape that was put over his shirt to stop his microphone from causing noises. Bill? Ready? Ready, mate? Mm-hmm. In 3, 2, 1. Check it out, check it out, check it out. There's a few there.
That was nice, do it again.
It's wild to think about the person that I was before, and, you know, friends that I have back in Manchester have said, you know, God, you've really changed, and I completely embraced that, you know. I said, yeah, of course I have. I've been to the other side of the world for 2 years, and had more experiences in 2 years than I've had in the whole of my life.
This looks strangely familiar.
It's because we've been here before.
Like Merry and Pippin, Frodo and Sam are separated from their friends on a journey that's becoming ever more perilous.
We're not alone.
Secretly trailing them is Gollum, once a hobbit-like being himself, until he was transformed by his lengthy possession of the ring.
Very early on, we discarded any thought of using an actor, simply because Gollum's appearance, as he's described in the book, is very emaciated. He's incredibly skinny and thin. He's almost more frog-like in a way than human. But we wanted Gollum to be a stronger actor as Elijah Wood.
So even though Gollum would be a computer-generated character, Jackson cast an actor, Andy Serkis, to create the performance.
Hello, hobbitses! Mustn't stop here. Come on.
And Andy does the voice of Gollum, but more importantly than that, all of the scenes he was on set with Elijah Wood and Sean Astin. And then we would replace Andy with the, with the proper-looking computer character.
No!
You know the way to Mordor. Frodo sees within Gollum sort of a mirror image of himself, what he could become if the ring were to take hold.
We can't eat hermit food. We have famished. Yes, famished we have. Precious.
He's obsessive, he's compulsive, he sweats when he sees the ring, he can't take his mind off it.
In addition to performing on set, Andy reenacted every Gollum scene in a motion capture studio.
And every move he would make, the computer model would do exactly the same thing.
They will cheat those precious wakers.
Perhaps no day of filming would challenge Andy more than the one that called for him to jump into a river and catch a fish.
You guys know the drill?
Yeah.
I'm going to say this to you because you're on camera.
The location is the foot of Mount Ruapehu, New Zealand's most active volcano. But there's a problem. The scene is supposed to take place in summer.
We woke up on the morning of the shoot and discovered that it had actually snowed overnight. And we had a problem because the schedule was very tight and we couldn't stay in Ruapehu an extra day.
So Jackson asked the crew to get rid of the snow by 1 o'clock that afternoon.
I've got to try and melt out this whole basin. This basin you see behind us here is the area that I've got to try and clean up. We want to see all rocks through here, no snow.
The strategy is threefold. Use huge fans and heaters to blow hot air over the area. Try to melt the snow with fire hoses. And break up the frozen river with shovels.
Progress has been slow, but I think we are making progress. As to whether we've got a location by lunchtime, still anyone's guess.
At 1 o'clock, the crew gets the call. The director is on his way up the mountain. The crew anxiously awaits Jackson's decision on whether enough of the snow has been removed to get the shot.
Well, the snow's not too bad through here. I think we've got a plan, Caro. We're putting a camera here, and we have Frodo and Sam up by sort of just past the fire hoses.
The river is now flowing, but the water Andy must jump into is still glacial cold.
Now, normally the suit I wear is very, very thin, and it's got a lot of flexibility, and I can move. This wetsuit was about 3 inches thick. It was like I looked like a Michelin man, and then they pulled the headpiece on it, and I couldn't move. I was like this.
Just give it a couple of beats after action, and then go for the fish. Okay. All right, good.
And look at Shauna, it's like, he's freaking me out, dude. The water's freezing cold.
And action!
The moment I dived in the water when Peter said action, I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. It was that cold.
But that was good for you, Andy. Just one more.
I think we did it like 4 times. That was mental. Andy was crazy.
And all I was thinking was, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Come on, keep going, keep going.
In the movie, Gollum's dive into the river will be Andy's performance. But perhaps no actor has undergone so much when his own flesh and blood will never be seen on the screen. When we return, Dominic Monaghan confronts his greatest fear.
Biggest bungee jump in New Zealand, which is terrifying.
And a stunt involving Viggo Mortensen goes horribly wrong.
Hey, hey!
some members of the Fellowship and the actors who play them, the journey through Middle-earth was largely on horseback.
Horse riding was a huge part of my training process to get very accomplished and feel very comfortable on a horse.
Action!
We had some huge stunts to do. I was riding over these planes, letting go of the reins because Gimli's fallen off. I'm firing at a beast that's about to attack.
Vigo was fortunately a very good rider when he arrived in New Zealand to work on the film. And that was lucky because, in a sense, he does the most riding out of any of the cast on screen.
Throughout production, Vigo never missed the opportunity to further improve his riding skills.
His stamina is just incredible. I mean, the man works every single day. He gets 1 day a week off. And even on his day off, he'll go horseback riding.
The more you're one with the horse, and the more you work with the horse, the more likely if something does go wrong on the set, or he gets spooked, or he's having a bad day, you can make the adjustments and hopefully get the shots that are needed.
Vigo thrived on the movie's numerous horse battles. But a scene where an unconscious Aragorn is swept down a river proved to be as dangerous for the actor as it was for the character.
Here we go!
It was probably my most scary moment in the whole shoot.
The river's rapids turned out to be stronger than anticipated.
The current just pushed me down to the bottom, and I couldn't come out of it. But I opened my eyes and I was way down. I was, I don't know, 15 feet down. I was running out of oxygen. Finally, I guess I kicked against a rock or something, and it just pushed me just enough away, and I just sort of popped up. It's like one of those things you read about where you're like, oh, wow, this is it. This is how it's gonna end.
For all the remarkable events the cast experienced during filming, they had at least as many unforgettable adventures away from set.
We arrived in Queenstown, which is basically the adventure capital of New Zealand, and we were given memos saying, please do not get involved. We love you guys and we don't want you to get injured. And it was like, yeah, I'm sorry, but this is far too much fun to be had, I managed to persuade Dom to come and do this bungee jump. He wanted to do it, he was afraid to do it. He wanted to sort of confront that fear.
Really? What's the best way to do it?
The biggest bungee jump in New Zealand, 400 feet, which is terrifying.
Dom was the first to take the plunge.
And he did it. It was fantastic to be with him, to see him kind of go through that.
I was really proud that I'd done it because I was really scared of heights.
That's fear now.
Now, it's Orlando's turn.
I did it once and I was like, can I do it again straight away?
The Hobbits spent most of their days off at the beach.
None of us were surfers before we got to New Zealand, and that took up a lot of our time. Once we started, Billy was like, you gotta give it a go, and I was like, okay. And then we surfed all the time.
Near the end of production, Sean Astin decided to make a short film about camaraderie, a theme shared by The Lord of the Rings.
I went person to person and asked people if they'd come and show up on Sunday, even though they'd worked for 14 days straight without a day off. And sure enough, everybody showed up. I'm the first AD.
My name's Andrew Lesney, and I'm starring in Sean Astin's project as the Grizzly Painter.
My name's Andy Sykes. I'm assistant location manager and kind of all-purpose runner.
Even Peter Jackson makes a cameo appearance as the bus driver.
Let's roll, camera. Let's roll. And action, camera.
Hey, Elijah. I'm not fit for the job. That's what I've learned.
And action.
Peter Jackson has just asked for another shot. I believe he's taking his bus driving
And
serious.
quiet, please. Action, Peter.
Cut, print. That's a wrap on Peter Jackson.
He's okay. He's a little bit bossy, a little bit pushy. I was trying to do my best. He He almost brought me to tears a couple of times, but I just held my composure, and I hope he's happy.
Everybody, thank you so much. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, you made a dream come true today. Thank you.
Even after years of working together nearly every day, the cast and crew of The Lord of the Rings never tired of each other.
And in fact, I think we probably became closer and closer as the movie progressed. We didn't have family there, and we didn't have any other friends there, so we became our family.
I wish it would go on for another 3 years. I wish it would go on forever. It's going to be a big hole when it's finished because it has been an intense and amazing experience, and it is like a family. It is like a fellowship amongst everybody.
I feel very proud to leave this behind me and to have been a part of it.
The experience of working on Lord of the Rings, it has profoundly changed my life. The more you struggle in life, the more you grow. And we certainly struggled on that film, and we grew.
It's going to be very difficult when that day finally comes that we'll have to say goodbye, because obviously it will. You know, once the third movie's in the can, that'll be it. And I think it's so far away in our minds right now that we aren't really thinking of that and not necessarily accepting that fact. But eventually we'll have to, and that'll be a very tragic day indeed.
You've waited long enough. The ultimate sneak preview of an exciting scene from The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is up next.
On the WB...
New Pies Rising.
Tonight, we end our journey through Middle-earth with the world premiere of a clip from The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. With the people of Rohan under savage attack by Saruman's forces, King Theoden has decided to evacuate the capital city of Edoras and seek refuge at the ancient fortress of Helm's Deep. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli accompany the Rohans, constantly on watch for the enemy.
What is it? What do you see? Under attack! All riders to the head of the column!
Hey, come on, get me up there. I'm a rider. Come on!
You must lead the people to Helm's Deep. And make haste.
I can fight.
No! You must do this. For me. Follow me!
Forward, I mean, charge forward.
Make for the lower ground.
The other way. I said, go on.
Stay together.
Next Wednesday, a holiday celebration at the Creek.
We're gonna have a nice civil Christmas dinner and then we're out of here.
So many friends, so much history. So how about a little Yuletide cheer?
Are you still upset that I shagged your dream boy? Because I am sorry about that.
This isn't going to end well.
An all-new Dawson's Creek Cape Side Christmas next week on the WB Wednesday.